1 month to love you. I should never have come to this party. Clara had begged me to accompany her. A private party in a luxurious mansion, exclusive guests, unlimited cocktails. She said it was the event of the year. I wasn't convinced, but I eventually gave in. From the moment I arrived, I knew something was off. The atmosphere was heavy. Everyone seemed on edge. As if behind the laughter and alcohol, a secret lurked. And then he appeared. A man stood at the top of the staircase, towering over the crowd with undeniable authority. He was tall, sculpted like a marble statue, dressed in a black suit that seemed tailor-made for his imposing silhouette. But what struck me the most was his gaze. Cold, calculating, dangerously intense. He scanned the room like a king surveying his subjects. Then his dark eyes landed on me. A shiver ran down my spine. I turned away, trying to ignore the strange sensation, the invisible weight pressing down on me under his gaze. Clara pulled me toward the bar, but I couldn't shake the feeling of his presence like a shadow lurking behind me. I should have left then. When I met his gaze a second time, I knew I had just made a fatal mistake. Everything happened too fast after that. A strong hand grabbed my arm as I headed toward the bathroom. Before I could scream, something covered my mouth. A sweet scent, immediate dizziness, then nothing. I woke up in an unfamiliar place. My heart pounded wildly as I slowly regained consciousness. I was lying on a king-size bed with silk sheets in an oversized bedroom. Massive wooden furniture, an imposing chandelier, a bay window revealing the night sky. I was no longer at the party. A shiver ran through me when I heard a sound. He was there, sitting in an armchair across from me, Raphael. I watched him, breath hitching. He didn't move, but his gaze was fixed on me. Burning. Dangerous. You're finally awake. His voice was deep, hypnotic. Why? My voice trembled. He stood up, slowly approaching the bed. Because I chose you. I clutched the sheets against me. Let me go. He tilted his head slightly as if amused. No. The word fell like a guillotine. I scrambled to my feet, ready to run, but in an instant he was on me. His hand closed around my wrist, pinning me against the wall. His warm breath brushed my skin, and I shivered despite myself. Too close. Too intense. You have 1 month to fall in love with me. I swallowed hard. And if I refuse? His smile widened slightly, a dark gleam in his eyes. Then you'll leave, free. My heart skipped a beat. I won't force you, he continued, whispering against my cheek. But trust me, in a month, you won't want to leave. He stepped back, leaving me disoriented, my body burning from the intensity of his presence. 1 month. 30 days before I either fell or fled. I remained frozen against the wall, breathing erratically. Raphael had just released me, but his gaze never left mine. I was both terrified and furious. Do you seriously think I'll fall in love with a man who kidnapped me? I spat. He smirked, a slow, controlled, arrogant smile. You'd be surprised. He walked away, heading toward the minibar near the bay window. He poured himself a glass of amber whiskey, took a sip, then turned back to me. Make yourself at home, Isabella. I flinched. How do you know my name? I know everything about you. A chill ran down my spine. You can't force me. I won't force you at all. He stepped closer again, slowly, like a predator savoring the moment its prey realizes it's trapped. You have 1 month, Isabella. I'll give you a reason to stay. He brushed his fingers against my cheek, and despite myself, my heart pounded. And when the time comes, it'll be you begging not to leave. I shoved his hand away with force. You're insane. Perhaps. Amusement flickered in his eyes, but I'm patient. Then he turned and left the room, leaving me alone with my ragged breathing and the certainty that I had just fallen into a game far more dangerous than I had imagined. The storm raged outside. The wind howled against the windows, the rain hammered the terrace. I couldn't sleep. I paced my room, trying to ignore the relentless pounding of my heart every time I thought of him. Then the door opened. I froze. Raphael entered without a word. He wore dark dress pants, his white shirt slightly unbuttoned. He was soaked, as if he had just walked through the storm. What are you doing here? I asked. my voice more unsteady than I wanted. He didn't answer. He stepped forward. His dark eyes gleamed with an intensity I understood too late. In a swift motion, he pinned me against the wall. "Stop running from me, Isabella." His breath was warm, laced with whiskey and something deeper. "I'm not—" He placed a finger over my lips. "Don't lie." My breathing quickened. His body pressed against mine made me dizzy. Everything about him unsettled me, consumed me. "Tell me to leave," he murmured against my skin. But I stayed silent. He smiled, his gaze triumphant. And that night, I knew I had just lost the first battle. I didn't say no. I didn't say yes either. But when his lips brushed my skin, when his scorching breath caressed my neck, I knew I was losing my grip. This dangerous game was turning into a storm, threatening to swallow my reason whole. "Let me go, Raphael," I whispered, my voice strangled. He froze, his gaze locked onto mine. "You don't want to leave. You're insane." A faint smile played on his lips. "Maybe, but look me in the eyes and tell me you feel nothing." My heart pounded violently. I wanted to hate him, but I couldn't deny this insane attraction, this fire consuming me whenever he was near. His fingers trailed along my cheek, then slowly down my arm, leaving a shiver in their wake. "You're playing with me, Isabella," he murmured against my lips, "but be careful. When you play with fire, you end up getting burned." And then, slowly, he stepped back. I stood there, breathless, my mind in turmoil. "Good night, Isabella." Then he left the room, leaving me trembling, trapped in a desire I refused to acknowledge. The following days were pure torment. Raphael didn't try anything. He watched me, provoked me with his gaze, but he never touched me. It was worse than anything. I saw him at breakfast, relaxed, reading his files as if my presence was insignificant. I saw him by the pool, shirtless, indifferent to my gaze, tracing every inch of him despite myself. And every night he came to wish me good night, a smirk on his lips, never crossing the line. He was driving me crazy. I knew what he was doing, he was flipping the game. Now it was me who watched him in secret. Me who held my breath every time he got too close. And he was savoring it. On the 15th day, I snapped. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, finding him on the terrace. He lifted his gaze from his whiskey glass, amusement dancing in his eyes. "What am I doing?" "You're playing with me." He put down his glass and stepped closer. "No, Isabella." He brushed my chin with his fingers. "You're the one playing with yourself." I opened my mouth to protest, but he cut me off. "Tell me the truth. Do you want me to kiss you?" I stayed silent. A burning silence stretched between us. Then he stepped back again. "Good night, Isabella." And that night, I realized he was winning. On the 18th day, I gave in. I waited for him in his bedroom. When he entered, shirtless, a towel wrapped around his waist after his shower, he stopped dead at the sight of me sitting on his bed. A silence, a long silence. "Isabella." "Shut up." I stood up and walked toward him. His gaze darkened. I placed my hands on his chest. His skin burned under my touch. "You win," I murmured. Then I kissed him. It was like striking a match in a room filled with gasoline. Raphael groaned against my lips and grabbed me by the waist. Our bodies crashed together in a feverish rush. His hands slid down my back, pulling me against him with a devouring intensity. We fell onto the bed in a tangle of sighs and burning touches. It was wild, uncontrollable, a battle between passion and pride, between hatred and desire. And at dawn, as he slept beside me, one thought crossed my mind. I'm falling in love with him. The morning after our night together, he said nothing. He stood there, silent, watching the sea through the bay window. I lay in bed, still caught in the turmoil of what we had just experienced. My fingers traced the blanket, brushing against the imprint of his body that had burned me all night. Then he turned to me. His gaze was heavier this time, darker. "You know, Isabella." He left his sentence hanging. I stared at him, still under the effect of the desire that had consumed me. "What?" He approached slowly, taking his time, as if each movement was calculated. You think this is a game, don't you? I sat up slightly in bed, but I couldn't hide the anxiety creeping into me. I knew he had noticed my hesitation. You haven't won yet. My voice was firmer than I had anticipated. A cold smile appeared on his lips. I think you're wrong. Before I could react, he seized my wrist and pulled me out of bed. I barely had time to react before he was leading me toward the door. Raphael, what are you doing? You belong to me now. I struggled to break free, but he was too strong, too in control. You're mine, Isabella. His voice was icy. And don't think this is over. A few hours later, I found myself in a stunning living room. The daylight filtering through the curtains emphasized the opulence of the place. Raphael didn't take his eyes off me. He was no longer the calm and unshakable seducer. He seemed troubled. You think I'm like the others, Isabella? I frowned. What do you mean? He abruptly stood up, his imposing figure moving with rare agitation. I let you play your games, but there's a much darker reality, Isabella. I slowly stepped closer, challenging his gaze. You kidnapped me. This isn't a game. He turned to me, his gaze tense. You think I kidnapped you for that? He stepped closer. No, Isabella, I never wanted this. I took you to test you, to see if you were strong enough to see me for who I really am. His words hit like punches. I didn't understand. I am what you see, Isabella. He ran a hand through his hair, visibly more agitated than ever. And I'm going to show you. He looked at me intensely, and something inside me shattered. This time he was no longer just a man, strong, powerful, but vulnerable, and it was that vulnerability that disturbed me even more than his strength. The next day, things took an unexpected turn. I found myself locked up again, but this time it wasn't in the luxurious villa. It was somewhere colder, more austere. Raphael was there with a man I didn't recognize. His face was hardened, marked by war. He seemed to be one of Raphael's associates, another pawn in his empire. What's going on? I asked, my voice trembling. Raphael didn't answer immediately. He slowly turned to the man in the black suit and spoke in a language I didn't understand. Suddenly, the man turned to me and stared coldly. It's over. The ground seemed to collapse beneath my feet. What? I wanted to scream, but my voice was broken. The man smiled, a cruel smile. You are nothing now. I couldn't breathe. Raphael's words echoed in my head over and over, like a cruel refrain. You're not the person I once knew. I was paralyzed, my heart pounding violently. The man I thought I understood, the one who had seduced me, manipulated me, was discarding me without a second glance. He had let me believe I was the only one, that what we shared was real. But in that moment, I knew he had never been sincere. It had all been a game to him, and every word he had spoken had been a mask. So why had he taken it off? I stood up furious, my fists clenched. I was not a puppet, not a toy to be used and thrown away when no longer useful. I ran toward the door, but it slammed shut before me. The sound of the lock echoed like a final judgment. You're not going anywhere. It was the man in the black suit. He stepped closer, his gaze as cold as the metal door. Raphael said it's over, but you're not out of the game yet, Isabella. I instinctively stepped back, my hands trembling. You're lying to me, I screamed. He shook his head slowly. You're the one lying to yourself. I had no choice but to face him. Raphael was gone, and he wasn't coming back to save me. He had abandoned me to this cold, ruthless world. But something inside me hurt even more than the physical pain. It was humiliation. The realization that I had been used as a pawn in a game where I didn't even know the rules. I glanced around. A window. A faint hope. But the man was too fast. He grabbed my arm, holding me in place. Don't be stupid. His grip tightened, almost pitying. You don't understand. You're part of the scenery now. I shivered at his words. I am not an object. I forced strength into my voice. He let out a disdainful laugh. You were, from the moment Raphael chose you. That was when an idea took shape in my mind. A risky one, but necessary. I knew I had to get back into the game, but this time I would play by my own rules. I turned to him, my gaze sharper than ever. I'm willing to do anything to get out of here. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Then do it. I took a deep breath. I want to see Raphael. The man hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. You think he'll save you? No, but he won't be able to ignore me if I go all the way. The challenge in my eyes was undeniable. He no longer had control. A few hours later, I stood before Raphael. He was alone, arms crossed, as if my presence was insignificant. But his gaze told a different story. He looked at me differently, as if he was trying to understand me. You wanted to see me. It was more of a statement than a question. I faced him, my heart pounding violently. I want to know why. He shrugged, impassive. Why what? I stepped closer, closing the distance between us. Why did you manipulate me? Why did you make me believe you wanted me? He didn't answer immediately, but I saw the tension in his eyes, the hesitation, that thin veil between control and humanity. Then finally, he spoke in a low, almost broken voice. I didn't manipulate you. I tested you. I looked at him with disgust. Tested? Yes. I needed to know if you could be more than you seemed, if you could understand what I truly am. His words hit me like a slap. But something else happened. A spark, a flicker of humanity. Raphael wasn't a monster. He was a broken man, with scars far deeper than I had imagined. He suddenly stood up. I never forced you into anything, Isabella. He stepped closer, his fingers barely brushing my skin. But everything you see here is the price of my survival. And I thought you could understand that. I felt dizzy. His gaze, his words, everything was a whirlwind of confusion and desire. I no longer had control. But a thought crossed my mind, as cold as the truth itself. I'd never been anything more than a piece in his puzzle. Raphael's words echoed in my mind like a bell, yet they felt as distant as the sea. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. He was staring at me intensely, as if searching for a secret I hadn't yet revealed. I no longer had control over the situation. Everything I thought I knew about him, about us, was collapsing into a storm of uncertainty. He slowly stood up, his movements calculated, as if every gesture had a purpose. He walked to the window, gazing into the night, lost in thought. You thought this was a test, didn't you? He finally said, his voice almost emotionless. I glared at him, ready to respond, but a chilling shiver ran down my spine when his eyes met mine. It wasn't a test, Isabella. He turned to me, his face hardening. It was preparation, a way for me to know if you could survive in my world, a world where I trust no one. I took a few steps back. His words hit me like a punch. What I thought was manipulation, a cruel game, was actually his way of staying alive. You were always just a piece of the puzzle, he continued, his tone growing darker. I saw you as an asset, someone who could help me build something stronger, to control what I started. But I thought... He paused, hesitating. He stepped closer to me. I thought you could be more than that. I thought you could... He stopped, his gaze drowning in confusion, as if his own emotions were overwhelming him. I didn't know how to react. I had believed him, believed in him. I had thought that everything we shared, every moment, every smile, every kiss, was real. But it had all been a masquerade, a means for him to secure his place in this ruthless world. I wanted to speak, but no sound came out of my mouth. He stepped even closer, almost too close, and with a trembling hand he brushed my hair. But the problem, Isabella, is that I'm not sure I can let you go now. A heavy silence fell over the room, suffocating. I swallowed hard, panic flooding through me. I had been a tool, a means to an end. But what he was telling me now, I couldn't bear it. He finally stepped away, his eyes filled with torment, with remorse, but also with an icy determination. You think you can leave whenever you want, don't you? He turned toward the door. But let me tell you something, Isabella. I froze. Every word he spoke paralyzed me more and more. I was never the man you thought I was. He stopped at the door, his back turned to me. And you are not the woman I believed you to be. I tried to approach him to understand, but he suddenly turned around. You want to know why I can't let you go, he said, his voice heavy with tension. Because you are far more dangerous than you think. And because you have a hold on me that even you don't realize. My breath caught. This month was a test for both of us, Isabella. He stepped forward, his piercing gaze locking onto mine. And now you can't leave, not without consequences you can't even imagine. A chill ran down my spine. You see, Isabella. He leaned in, his voice a whisper against my skin. It's too late for games. You are mine, and I am yours. I knew now that Raphael had taken control. He no longer needed words to manipulate me. Every gesture, every look, every silence, everything about him dominated me. But there was something inside me that refused to fully submit. A fragment of my will still screamed to be free. I knew that if I wanted to, I could run. I could escape into the night, find a way to disappear into the shadows and erase everything. But the more I thought about it, the heavier the idea of leaving became. The truth was there, right in front of me, like a mirror in which I saw myself reflected, lost and confused. I had never imagined that everything binding me to him would be so complex. His arms held me in an invisible trap, one so soft, so captivating. I knew he had captured me, not just physically, but emotionally as well. Every night spent with him had brought me closer to this truth, the truth I had initially denied. There were moments when he became almost tender with me. His kisses were so deep, so passionate, they left me breathless. But it wasn't just passion. It was as if he was showing me another side of himself, a more human, more vulnerable side. And yet, every tender gesture, every moment where he seemed to offer me everything, was followed by a threat, by control, like an invisible rope tightening around my wrists. Love, if it existed at all, was trapped between these two extremes. Passion and manipulation, freedom and a cage. I found myself juggling my emotions, feeling more lost each day. Raphael knew that I needed him, that somewhere deep inside I was irresistibly drawn to him. But every time he allowed himself these moments of affection, I reminded myself of the truth. He was not the man I had imagined. He was not my Prince Charming. He was a drug lord, a man for whom love was nothing more than a currency of exchange. I was alone, trapped in a whirlwind of contradictions. One evening, as he held me in his arms, his steady breath against my neck, I heard him murmur words that shook me. You know, Isabella, he said in a low, almost soothing voice, I never believed in love, but you're different. I didn't respond immediately. His words were like a delicious poison, intoxicating me while slowly destroying me. Do you want to know why I can't let you go? He ran his fingers through my hair, a strange softness in his voice. Because I think you've changed me. Yes, I'm a monster, but you're the only one who makes me doubt. A shiver of anxiety ran through me. I knew what he was trying to do. He was seducing me. He was letting me glimpse a future where maybe we could be together in some uncertain balance. But I also knew I would always be under his control. The thought of escaping tormented me at every moment. But every time I told myself I could erase everything, he reminded me that he knew every corner of my mind. He understood me better than I wanted to believe. And there, in that silent night, I made a decision. But it left a bitter taste, a feeling of betrayal against myself. I had found a way out. I had figured out how to escape. But there was a part of me that held me back. Raphael left me as usual, alone in the bedroom. He was probably overseeing something, a deal, some business. He was often absent at night, leaving me alone with my thoughts. That's when I saw it. The phone sitting on the nightstand. It was my ticket out, my plan, my chance. But the moment my fingers brushed against it, I froze. I knew that once I used it, there would be no turning back. Raphael would know. He would find me. And maybe then, there would be no escape. I'd found a way to break free. I held the key to my freedom. But did freedom come without a price? Was that price too heavy to bear? I heard the sound of the door opening. It was him. I slowly turned my head, my heart pounding. He looked at me, and a slight but meaningful smile appeared on his lips. You're not going anywhere, Isabella. Not now. He knew. He knew I was ready to run, to free myself from him. And something in his gaze told me that, of all we had shared, he had always known he would have me in the end, that I was the last piece of the puzzle he had patiently assembled. And in that look, I understood something. He had always held power over me, but that power was far greater than I had imagined. And even if I escaped, he would catch me. He would always catch me. I took a deep breath, glancing one last time at the phone before letting it fall back onto the table. Maybe it was never about running. Maybe I had already fallen long before all of this. But did this decision mark the end of everything, or just the beginning of a new kind of domination?
We're two hearts in the dark, chasing whispers through the night. Secrets buried in the stars, hidden in the pale moonlight. Every glance feels like a spark, every word just out of reach. We're dancing close but standing still, on the edge of love's mystique. In the shadows